Hi, my name is Alonso Padron, and today I'm going to be discussing finger picking patterns and going to be illustrating those patterns with several song examples. Now, these employ what's called Travis picking. Travis picking is when you have a pattern where the thumb alternates between strings 6 and 5, 6 and 4, 6 and 3 sometimes, and 5 and 4. I actually prefer to use fingers 1, 2, and 3 for strings 3, 2, and 1, even when doing this Travis picking style. And the reason being is if you wanted to have a quick run, like, then it's more important to access all three fingers, 1, 2, and 3 for strings 3, 2, and 1, for like a quick run like that. Or like that. So the first song example I want to use is by one of my favorite singer-songwriters, which is Gordon Lightfoot, and the song is going to be Song for Winter's Night. So for this G, it's going to be using the first finger on the 5th string 2nd fret, second finger on the 6th string 3rd fret, third finger on the 2nd string 3rd fret, and fourth finger on the 1st string. And then these chords are going to be this G, then you're going to this chord here, it's a D over F sharp chord. The next one's going to be a conventional E minor. And then the next one, your conventional C. And then going back to that first G, and then you're going back to the D over F sharp, and then back to the G where we started. It's going to be using a Travis picking pattern where you're doing a pinch pattern with the thumb and the second finger together, and then coming over with the thumb to the 4th string, and then the first finger on the 3rd string, back to the thumb on 6th, second finger on 2nd, and then thumb on 4th. And then so for the next chord, you'll be doing the exact same right hand pattern. And then for the E minor, the same right hand pattern. And then C, it's going to be also a similar pattern, but because your root note changes to the 5th string, because the C root is here on the 5th string 3rd fret, then your thumb is going to go down, and then the pattern will sound like this. Same pattern, the only thing that changes is that thumb going from the 6th to the 5th string. Then you go back to the G again and do that pattern the same. And then to this D over F sharp again, same pattern. Here is when you're going to be going back to the G, but now the pattern will shift to these strings with the thumb on the 6th and the 3rd finger on the 1st. And then these two fingers will move down to strings 2 and 3 with fingers 2 and 1 respectively. And then you have this. And then you go to the D chord, in which these three fingers 1, 2, and 3 will be the same, but the thumb goes down to string 4. back to this G. For this next song, I'm going to be using Brain Damage by Pink Floyd from an album you might have heard of called Dark Side of the Moon. The chords are going to be your conventional open D, and then the second chord is going to be this G7, and then you're going back to the D, conventional D. Then in this case, you're moving the D up 2 frets, but having the root here as a D still, which makes this chord an E over D. And then the next chord will be this A7 shape, which you have the first finger barred over these 3 strings, strings 2, 3, and 4, and third finger on the first string, 3rd fret. And then you go back to the D we started with, the conventional open D. You're going to be using thumb for string 4, 3 for string 1, playing together, and then finger 2 for string 2, back to 3 on string 1, and then these 2 together again, and then string 2 and 3 quicker, and then string 1 for the last part of that pattern. The pattern is the same for this chord, G7, except now the thumb goes down to string 6. Then going back to the D again, the one we started with. Back to the G7. Then back to the D. Then that D shape moved up 2 frets. Same pattern with the right hand. And then now the A7 chord, which is the same pattern except the thumb goes down to string 5. And then back to the D, which is what we started with. For this song, this demonstrates what's called an alternating bass pattern. In that case, the thumb would be alternating in between the pattern from strings 5 to 6, or from 6 to 5, and sometimes 6 to 4. These chords would be this A chord to begin with. This is your conventional open A chord. The second chord would be this F sharp minor bar chord. The third one is going to be your conventional open E chord. And the last one would be your conventional open D chord. It's going to be employing an alternating bass pattern with the thumb, but where the top 3 strings and fingers 1, 2, and 3, the pattern will be the same. So it sounds like. And then the next chord of that, on this F sharp minor chord, the pattern for strings 1, 2, and 3 with fingers 1, 2, and 3 is going to be the same pattern as on the A chord, but now thumb will alternate between 6 and 5, starting with 6. Now going to this E chord, the pattern changes again, where you're alternating the thumb with strings 6 and 5, starting with 6, which is the same as we did for the F sharp minor chord, but now the pattern changes with the other fingers. So it goes 6, 3, 4, 1, and then 5th string with thumb, 3, 4, 1. And then when you go to a D chord, you're alternating with strings 4 and 3, but as I mentioned before, I'm going to be using finger 1 for string 3 instead of the thumb. So that's 4, 1, 3, 2, 1 strings. And then there's this little walk down from fret 4, fret 2, and 0 on string 5. That ties together the D chord to the A chord. Okay, so when doing a difficult change from this A to the F sharp minor on Take Me Home Country Roads, oftentimes there might be like what I call a ghost stroke or a little dud, but that's not a bad thing because it would replace the last 8th note of the measure in order to keep time so you don't hear any gaps. For instance, something like that. But that's much better to keep the flow of a chord change like that going rather than having a gap between it. So either there's like what's called a ghost note or just a pluck like this on the last 8th note of a measure on a song like this. So for this example, Can't Find My Way Home by Blind Faith, you're going to be first tuning the E string, the low E, down to D. Now we're going to go to this G5 over C, which is the second finger on 5th string, 3rd fret, third finger on 2nd string, 3rd fret. Then the next chord is going to be leaving that 3rd finger down, but then substituting the 1st finger on the 5th string, 2nd fret. And then the 3rd chord will be just also leaving the 3rd finger down, moving the 1st finger down 1 fret to the 1st fret, 5th string. And then you're going to be going to this D chord, which is a conventional D. The root is going to be this A note for that particular chord. And then you're going to be using this chord here, which is an F chord, but because of that E string being tuned down to a D, the shape of this chord and the fingering is different. In other words, now you have to have the 4th finger on the 4th string, 3rd fret, and the 3rd finger on the 6th string, 3rd fret. This last chord is going to be a G chord, but omitting the 5th string, moving the 3rd finger up to the 5th fret, 6th string, which makes that a G note, and it's on the 5th fret because of that detuning of the 6th string. And then the strings are going to be these. And then there's this little motif at the end where you have the 1st finger playing the 5th string, 2nd fret. Then you're going to be going back to this D chord, but then you're going to be having the thumb on the 6th string, and then there'll be this little pull off, which is the 2nd finger going to the 5th string, 3rd fret, pulling off to the open 5th string. And the last little bit is just playing these two together, strings 4 and 6, which is an octave. Okay, so the pattern for this song is going to be thumb on string 5, then 2 on string 2, back to 5, back to 2, then thumb goes down to 4. For the next chord, that pattern will be identical. Now for this 3rd chord, the pattern changes slightly. Instead of going 5, 2, 3, and then 4, 3, it'll be going 5, 3, 2, and then 4, 3. And then you go to that chord I mentioned, that's the D over A, the conventional D, with the A root. And then you're playing string 5, string 1, string 2, string 3. Then you're doing this open 2nd string, which gives you time to change to this next chord, that F shape I mentioned. And then it's strings with the right hand, string 6, string 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4. Then that 3rd finger moves up to the 6th string, 5th fret, as I mentioned before, and then string 6, 2, 4, 3, And then for the last little part of that motif, first finger goes to the 5th string, 2nd fret. So for the last chord in this example, you're going back to the conventional D shape, but your root will be on the 6th string with the thumb, and then playing string 6, string 2, string 4, string 3, and then you're bringing the 2nd finger over to the 5th string, 3rd fret, playing that, and then doing the 2nd note with a pull-off, and then playing strings 6 and 4 together.